And now it's time for the King's Corner Sports Sound Off.
Welcome back, everyone, to another edition of King's Corner Sports Sound Off. It's under the kingscornersports.com and the King's Corner Sports podcast. You have to go to kingscornerfootball.com. I still own that domain and haven't switched it over yet. I'm hoping to do that in the near future, but if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. I'll keep it the cheapest way that I can have it, and if that means keeping King's Corner Football, that's the way it is. So on this sound off, I'm hoping to do a couple tonight, but if this is the only one I get to, that's also the way it is. This one comes a question from Dan Priest. So Dan, you'll know he calls in frequently into the podcast, and he is doing the Pick'em this year with myself, and Kyle Pavella and Eric Wickman. And Dan emailed in, and he wanted me to talk about something that came up on the ESPN radio show Russillo and Kanell last week. It followed the Minnesota Vikings game, which the Packers lost, by the way, and all hell broke loose on pretty much every radio show and pretty much every sports entity everywhere was talking about Rodgers. Is he done? Well, first of all, no, he's not. He's still making incredible plays. But he says, "Hey Jordan, so last week Danny Kanell made the idiotic statement that Aaron Rodgers is Jay Cutler with a Super Bowl ring. I'd like to hear your take on the matter." So first of all, that is an idiotic statement, and I'll get to that in a second. But I'm glad so I didn't actually hear this. I wasn't watching the show. I'm glad I went and I looked it up. Because while Danny Kanell did say this, Dan took it a lot of it out of context. So what Kanell was saying was, if you're a Rodgers hater, or if you're trying to, maybe you're a Bears fan or a Vikings fan or a Lions fan, and for once in your life you're trying to say that Aaron Rodgers, or maybe not once in your life, maybe you've said it his whole career, that Aaron Rodgers is Jay Cutler with his Super Bowl ring. The reason Kanell said that is their personality, which honestly I don't think I can argue that much with. If you look at Rodgers, he really has this I don't really care attitude, or as Kanell said, middle finger to the world attitude, and you really can't debate that because that's kind of how Rodgers acts. But as Kanell said, he's put up the numbers and he's played to back it up, unlike Cutler, to be able to do that stuff and act that way, which you can agree with or not. I think he has warranted the ability to, in a way, to kind of be the guy that he wants to be and play the way he wants to play, because for the last 5 years, maybe not last year, but the 4 or 5 years before that, he was the best quarterback in football, and there's no debating it. There really isn't, and the numbers back it up. But regardless, just a little a lesson for everyone. Make sure you're getting stuff in context. But that happens to all of us, isn't it? But and I don't know if Dan caught the whole interview or just saw like a replay, because ESPN is really weird about that. They'll show 4-second clips of like a radio show, and someone will say something super outrageous, and it's totally out of context. But first of all, I want to talk about saying stuff like this, because you hear it a lot. You hear it, Skip Bayless, Stephen A. Smith, Colin Cowherd sometimes, although I think Cowherd does a phenomenal job. He always has reason to back up what he says. Stephen A. and Skip, not so much most times. But when you're working for ESPN or Fox Sports and you have to bring in so many viewers, what's the best way to do that? Be controversial. That's what sports fans want to hear. They want you to say something stupid so they can kill you for it. They want good players to play bad so that they have something to talk about on Monday morning besides work. But yeah, Skip, Stephen A., you have to make a splash. As one of my professors here at Oklahoma State labeled it, he said that Skip Bayless sold out. Because if you read a lot of his early work, which I've read some of the stuff that he's written earlier, he's got to be one of the brightest minds in sports, one of the ultimately smartest guys as far as sports goes. But now, you got to make the splash, and you got to say controversial stuff, and you got to say stuff that maybe you don't quite believe in fully, but it's going to get you a click. It's going to get you a follow. It might get you a new viewer. And that's the chance that you have to take. And the more haters you have, the more people are talking about you, the more recognized you're going to be. That's just the way that sports works, whether or not you like it. So, but I thought it'd be fun, just since Dan brought it up and Kanell was talking about it. Let's look at Rodgers next to Cutler, because I just wrote it down. I just researched it and wrote it down. It's hilarious. And for any Vikings fan or Bears fan that would ever say this, you just throw this stuff at them, okay? 64 completion percentage, first of all, 64.9 for Rodgers. Honestly, I was a bit surprised by that. I think that's quite low for such a good quarterback, 64.9. And Cutler's at 62, so not a big discrepancy there. So they might have a case, right? 33,016 yards for Rodgers over his career, 31,781 for Cutler. So again, they're pretty darn close. But here's where it starts to get comical. Jay Cutler throws an interception every 1.43 passes. Or touchdowns, sorry. Passes, that'd be ridiculous. 1.43 touchdowns to 1 interception. That means that every 3 touchdowns he throws, he's throwing more than 2 interceptions. Yes, every 3 touchdowns, just over 2 interceptions for. That's ridiculous. How does someone like that have a long career in the NFL? I think he's been playing since 2006. That's a 10-year career with those kind of numbers. Golly, no wonder the Packers have had such success in the NFC North. You get to play Jay Cutler twice a year. As Charles Woodson always said, you just got to catch the ball. Jay's going to throw it to you. But Rodgers, this is ridiculous. This is outrageous. 4 touchdowns to every 1 interception over the course of his career. Are you kidding me? That is astronomical. I didn't even look up Dan Marino's. I should have. I think Marino's around 2.5 maybe, or 2, and Brady's right around that number 2. That's ridiculous. 4-1. That's outrageous. And one of the guys that is the biggest Aaron Rodgers apologist, he works for Fox Sports 1. I am totally blanking on his name right now. I, for whatever reason, can't remember it. But I'll be sure to put it in the comments to the video. You talk about Aaron Rodgers, and he is easily, statistically wise, at the peak of his career, which we might still be in yet. Let's not immediately rule out that we're past that. Easily the best quarterback that's ever played the game. Easily. Not even close. And he doesn't have the resume to back it up as far as an all-time conversation goes. He doesn't have the 5 Super Bowls that Brady has, and the playoff record that Brady has. But, Brady's had some pretty good teams around him. Peyton Manning always got to use the excuse that he never had a good defense until the last year. Rodgers doesn't get that excuse. At least according to Skip Bayless. He doesn't get that excuse. That's not, that's not fair. So, whatever. Cutler, 75.7 rating to Aaron Rodgers, 98.6. Ridiculous. And that takes in all accounts of playing the position of quarterback. We know that Rodgers is very ample at running. He's already got 2 rushing TDs this season. A couple key first downs against the Lions on Sunday to kind of help ice away that game, although there are some concerns on not keeping your foot down on the gas pedal for the full 60 minutes. And I was actually reading, I think it was a power rankings maybe done by NFL.com. I read all kinds of power rankings before I do my own. But the guy who does NFL.coms, he was saying that it was probably smart for Mike McCarthy to just pound the running game, even if it's not working, because in the playoffs, in cold weather, that's what you got to do. That's how you win in the playoffs. That's how you win at Lambeau Field. So I kind of agree with that, but and in the same way, you can't let games like that get away from you. And if you would ever happen to lose a game like that against the Lions, that is easily going to be the difference between home field throughout, even a bye maybe, winning your division. I mean, that stuff, you can't lose to teams like the Lions, can't lose to teams like the Bears. That's just the way it is, especially when you're trying to reach the heights that the Packers are trying to reach. Playoffs isn't good enough anymore, and we know that. Rodgers knows that. McCarthy knows that. Thompson knows that. They've held themselves. You have to now hold them to a higher standard because of how they've been over recent history. Well, that's all I really have to say about this Rodgers Cutler thing. I'm glad I did look into the video, because I was a bit surprised, because Kanell and Rodgers tweet at each other a lot. When Rodgers is in the offseason, he doesn't tweet during the regular season, but they tweet at each other fairly often. So I was a little shocked to hear that from Kanell. And I don't really agree with too much Kanell has to say. I have to be honest with you. I'm just not a huge fan of most of what he has to say. But yeah, it's crucial not to take stuff out of context, and everyone does it all the time. So, yeah, he did not say, that Rodgers is Cutler with a Super Bowl ring. He's saying that's what the haters will start to say now if Rodgers starts to struggle a little bit here, leaning towards the back end of his career. But yeah, so yeah. Just a fun fact here. Rodgers is 0.8 points away. 0.8 points away in standard fantasy scoring from 2,500 fantasy points. I would like you all to know that back in 2010, guess who drafted him in a keeper league? A lot of those points went to my team, that's for sure. Purple People Eaters coming at you again this year in the UEFA Champions League Fantasy Football League. Guys, thanks for joining me. Until next time, may the ball bounce your way. Don't forget, if you're watching this on Facebook, head over to my Facebook page, either my personal one or the King's Corner Sports/football one, and check out the logos that I've designed. Vote for one. Make sure you're liking the King's Corner Football Facebook page. If you do both of those things, even if you vote for the losing logo, doesn't matter. Even if you vote for the losing logo, you'll be entered, and the winning logo, I'm hoping to decide here in the next week or so, but I want to get enough votes to where I actually get a good feel of it. But the winning logo and the winning person from the drawing will get a shirt for the King's Corner Sports, the first ever King's Corner Sports t-shirt.
This was a King's Corner Sports production. If you liked this show, be sure to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss the latest and greatest news in the world of sports. Check out kingscornerfootball.com for more information. And remember, it's your sports in his corner.